Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Twin Peaks The Return, Part 14. Full spoilers for the episode. I don't think I was prepared for the number of things that we would... Because, without saying what it is, why I like to build to it when we're full spoilers anyway, I don't know, but I like to, right? Without saying what it is, there's a big reveal in the first 10 minutes that I thought, oh, that's a big thing for this week. Oh, the rest of it can just be them sitting eating cake, and this will be a great episode. And then it just kept doing more things and doing more and more and more big reveals.
It got to a point where it was like, this is ridiculous as shit.
Yeah, it's so condensed with big stuff. It's like, whoa, like, slow down. You're hitting with all these big ideas. And then obviously the final stuff is like completely out there.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into... before we talk about this week's, though, I do want to just... this isn't so much about last week's episode, but it was brought up in the comments of last week's episode. Namely about whether or not Bob is still inside Doppelkoop. Now, because we were kind of speaking under the impression that he was no longer there, that the woodsman had taken him out in episode 8. Because we saw him, saw the orb coming out of the stomach. But someone pointed out that they didn't actually take him. And it's true or not, so I'm like, okay, I'll go back and look at it and just see, because memory plays tricks. You remember things a certain way. And sure enough, I'm watching it now. I don't think there's necessarily proof that they didn't, but at the same time, it's not as conclusive that they did as I thought it was.
We
in my
were
head.
just assuming, so we saw what we wanted to see.
Kind of, yeah. Basically, you see the orb coming out the stomach, but you never actually see one of them pick it up or like move it away. It's almost like they're patching him up, and he's just sort of. He wants to stare at Ray just to scare the shit out of him for like a second. Like, it could almost be read that way. So Bob may very well still be inside Doppelkoop.
Okay. While we're on things that just not necessarily relevant to this episode, it occurred to me while watching it that, you know how we've said how a lot of the townspeople seem very, they're in dark places.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me that the people who we are considering, they're the strangest people, like... Nadine and those sorts, they're kind of the ones that seem to be the happiest as well.
Yeah, I can.
I just thought it was interesting. Those ones that seem to not just going along with the normalcy of life. Like, look at Jerry. He seems pretty happy, but he's not just kind of doing what everyone else is doing. I don't know.
Who's Jerry?
What?
Who's Jerry?
What do you mean, who's Jerry?
Who's Jerry?
You know who Jerry is?
No, I don't. Who's Jerry?
What?
Oh, as in Ben and Jerry. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, sorry, I'm like, what the hell? This is... You were making me think, am I saying the wrong name?
I didn't know who Jerry was there for a second. Okay,
are you sure you're up for this tonight?
I'm game. Well, to be fair, the end of this episode's left me in a bit of a fragile state, okay?
Yeah, all right. But, Christ.
So you were saying Jerry's okay then? You think he's...
What I mean is, these people who seem to be kind of doing their own things. They're not just doing what everyone else is doing. They seem to be the happiest almost. Like carefree.
Well, right now he's a bit in a confuddled state, but yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise, yeah, okay, fair enough. I really had no idea who Jerry was there for a second.
You had me questioning, was like, am I saying the right person? Have I just made up a name?
My mind just went to Jerry from Parks and Recreation, and I'm like, he's not in this. That's a different show. Who's Jerry?
Oh God, this is going to be a long one.
All right, so starting on this episode, and I've lost all credibility already. So, so Gordon, South Dakota, he's phoning what turns out to be Lucy. He's phoning the police department in Twin Peaks. So, right away, this is exciting. It's like, oh, this is weird. They've not connected yet. This is a first time here. And she picks up. He has a great reaction shot because he makes a comment along the lines of, "What, Lucy, you've been there all that time?" It's like, well, not all that time. Me and Andy, went on holidays, and she's like telling them about it. And there's just this great long silence afterwards where Gordon's just kind of looking around like,
he's just there, just blinking like, I don't know how to respond to this.
Yeah, Gordon can't process Lucy. But he's there to return a call. He's been contacted by Sheriff Truman, of course, about the... In this case, I mean, I wasn't actually sure where this was going. I thought it might bring up the key or whatever, but no, it turns out it's specifically about the diary pages, about the Laura Palmer diary pages that indicated two Coopers. And of course, this will mean something to Gordon, and it clearly does, to the point where he says back to Harry, not Harry, sorry, Frank. You see what I did there? He at least that one makes sense. That one's explainable.
No, I'll give you that one.
Right. But he says back to him, "Look, I can't tell you the significance of that information, but I'm glad you gave me it." Is basically the gist of the scene, and that's pretty much it.
It's let's say it's not like a big deal of a moment for us, but it's
No.
nice, just for them to get right. They're putting the pieces together. Information is starting to flow in the right direction.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. That did not prepare me for what comes up next, though. Oh, that's it. Before we even get to the meat here, so we got a scene with Tammy and Albert, and they're in what they've basically made their makeshift like headquarters in Dakota. They've got all their equipment in there, and Albert's telling Tammy about the case that started the Blue Rose, like what started this whole project, this whole task force, and it was 1975. And he tells the story of Lois Duffy. Two FBI agents responded to her home and found her dead. She's shot and sorry,
Shot in the abdomen, just in case it's relevant, as to
it
where.
could be, yeah. And as she's dying, she says, "I am like the Blue Rose," and then smiles, and then vanishes into thin air.
Yeah.
And then it's at this point where they notice the other person in the room is also Lois Duffy. And obviously to us, we were like, doppelganger. Oh, we got doppelganger in action here. And then he reveals that the two agents were Gordon Cole and Philip Jeffries. Yeah. So, yeah, it feels like it makes sense that those are the ones. Because even in, and obviously this comes up in a minute, but even in Fire Walk with Me, when Philip Jeffries showed up, Cooper had never met him.
Yes.
So the idea that he was there back at the start of all this, and things went down. But he says to Tammy, "So what's significant? What's the question you should be asking me?" And she's like, "What is the significance of the Blue Rose?" And she gets to the right point that it's not natural, that it's not something that actually happens in nature. It's if a blue rose exists and someone has created it, it is a. And then she goes on to use the word a tulpa, which means it's created through mysticism and like a kind of not the real thing. It's an illusion almost. Yeah. So, that was very much just like laying down some of the history for us, and I'm sure people who have read the Secret History of Twin Peaks book probably had some of this information already. But this was, I think, on the show, laying down some of this history and putting the timeline in motion.
Yeah, it's nothing. Again, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's just filling things out a little bit for us.
Yeah, but that said, it is sort of cleaning up the stage a little bit. It's putting things in order where, like, okay, we know where all this started initially, before we ever got to Twin Peaks and Laura Palmer. And, we go further back than Gordon does. We know it goes all the way back to the nuclear bomb. So, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Then Gordon comes in, he's quite happy, and we get what I have written down as the window cleaner attack.
It's a good description of it.
Where the noise of the squeegee upsets Gordon's hearing device, and I thought this was interesting because it was actually kind of creepy, even though nothing creepy was really happening.
Yeah, and it was giving him like because he was turning up so loud, he was getting feedback.
Yeah,
stuck in a loop, which is that's what feedback is.
Very good, yes. It's the idea you never see who the window cleaner is or what he looks like. It's just a shadow through the curtains, through the blinds.
Yeah. And
you just see the movements. But it's kind of isolated. And then the scene goes on. That's when Diane comes in, and she's like, "Deputy Diane, reporting for duty." Gordon asks her, "Right, that last night with Cooper that he came to see you," and she's pissed off that she's been asked about this. She doesn't want to talk about it. But he's like, "No, we need to know one thing. Did he mention Major Briggs?" But she says, yes, he did. And that's when he opens up a little bit more about what they know, about the case, about Briggs, and how Briggs was supposed to have died in the fire 25 years ago, but it's now they've found his body, and seemingly he's only been dead for a few days, all this stuff. But then, of course, the big thing here is the ring.
Yes, now comes the bombshells.
He brings up the ring, and tells Diane the inscription, which was, "To Dougie, love Janie E." And Diane's like, "Oh shit." And I'm like, why is she reacting to that?
Yeah, it's like, okay, that does even to us that was never a big deal when we found the ring. It's like, okay, we know Dougie and Janie are over there. We don't get why this is here, but
yeah, it was a big deal in that. Okay, we know those characters. Why is there a ring inside this body? Like,
right?
What's the connection there? But other than that, there was no. Whereas Diane's reacting in a different way here. And then she
Yes.
explains, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's what the E in Janie E stands for. Stands for Evans. Janie E is Diane's younger half-sister.
Yes.
And my favourite part of this, obviously this was a bombshell, and I was like sitting up and like, what? All this time? Right? And it makes sense. Think about how, like, Janie E's personality, how she commands the scene, how she talks to people. And she's like she like storms through people and like demands things. It's very Diane.
I love the idea that this version of Cooper ended up with a almost version of Diane. It's like, because it was like a not quite Cooper with a not quite Diane.
Yeah, I kind of like that. My favourite part of it though is when she's like, "Oh, Jenny E, she's married to a man named Douglas Jones," and then as she says the next sentence, there's just this hint of disdain in her voice. Everyone calls him Dougie. And it just made me like, it was almost this meta moment again where it's like, yeah, we know the audience is sick of hearing about Dougie, so she's sick of hearing about the name Dougie as well. But there's just that disdain in her voice. But I love it because actually, like, their personalities are actually kind of similar in a lot of ways. At least the way they handle themselves in situations is very similar.
Speaking of disdain, when they mention names, I got a good chuckle when Albert said Janie E. He was like, ugh.
Yeah. So big stuff. And of course, this makes you think back to have they asked about Vegas yet?
Of course.
Was she expecting those names specifically? Did Diane somehow select Dougie as the vessel for the fake Cooper, or did she give fake Cooper or double Cooper the like? Oh, that's where you can put him. That's
Yeah. Did Dougie exist? Did some version of Dougie exist before that? Because if not, it would imply to me it was like, no, Dougie was created from this, like, this last night that Doppelkoop came and visited Diane. Maybe he's learnt about Janie E then, for however.
And
done that.
She says that they're not spoken in years, that they're estranged, and she hates her. And I'm like, well, she hates her sister. She's like, yeah, send this awful, weird copy thing to her.
Yeah.
Like, and I can kind of see that all working out. But again, I'm still kind of thinking that Diane deep down is actually still on the good side of things. We're just waiting to see what the spin is. What is she actually playing at? Maybe that's just blind hope on my part, but that's
got to have some hope.
Then we cut to somehow what might be the funniest scene of the entire season. Gordon calls the Las Vegas FBI office, and it explains to them they want a Mr. and Mrs. Douglas Jones, and then the other guy, Wilson, his name is, points out to the superior on the phone, oh, there's 23 Douglas Joneses in Las Vegas. And at this point I'm like, Gordon, you know the wife's name, tell him the wife's name, that'll narrow this down considerably. But whatever.
Gordon's just a shit, isn't he? He just likes stirring it up.
He does. He's like, give them work. I mean, 23 is not that much to work through, admittedly, but it's more than...
It's more than they have to,
yeah,
given that they're on a time crunch.
Wilson points out, how are we going to find him? And
he says, how are we going to find the right one?
And then the superior at the desk, at the top of his lungs, and I want to point out, like, just how that's not going to happen. That's overexposed. Never mind. I just want to point. I've written this out in bigger lettering than I normally do, to emphasise.
I did it all in caps.
Yes. Wilson, how many times have I told you? This is what we do in the FBI. And then he slams his fist down and like crushes whatever's on his desk. And
he's being so animated. He's pointing at him during all of this. I lost it. I just burst out laughing.
It was fantastic. People are going to be shouting that at other people for years.
Yeah, this is what we do in the FBI is going to be like, that's it. That's all you need.
Yeah, that cracked me up.
Can that become part of their marketing campaign?
The
when they're
FBI?
recruiting. Yeah, when the FBI are recruiting, just have them shout that at the end of the advert. Why not? Like you know how it's like they don't want to make it seem all glamorous. They're like, look, this is the reality of the job.
Mm-hmm.
And then the show is like, oh, this is what you expect, and this is what it actually is. And then at the end, it's like, this is what we do in the FBI.
I'll tell you what, I feel sorry for anyone who currently works in the FBI who happens to be named Wilson, because they're just going to get it now, every day,
and they deserve it
for the rest of their life.
I'm sure they deserve it.
All right, so Diane leaves. Diane leaves the scene. And this is where, like, okay, I'm going to tell you guys. He tells them about what happened in the phone call. He's like, okay, 2 Coopers. Obviously, that perks everyone up because they're like, oh, wait, okay, we've dealt with 2 people before. In fact, the first ever instance that led to this whole Blue Rose thing in the first place was an example of 2 versions of the same person, right? So
it's not groundbreaking news to them either. It's not like, oh, there could be 2.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, there could be 2. That's interesting.
Yeah, to them, 2 Coopers isn't this weird, like, what the hell? To them, 2 Coopers like, oh,
yeah,
there could be 2.
It's understandable why they didn't jump to that. Or at any point. I mean, maybe they were getting there anyway, and this was just more conclusive. But it wouldn't be. Oh, this is completely unheard of.
Exactly. So then he's like, he said he had a Monica Bellucci dream last night. And before we even get to the dream itself, I just want to point out I love Tammy's reaction to this. As soon as he says it cuts to her, and she's got this little smirk on her face, like, "Oh, you dirty old man!" Like that's the look. It's like she's expecting a dirty story here. So, dreams in black and white, and he's talking about a cafe in Paris where he meets Monica Bellucci, and it is Monica Bellucci playing herself in this dream.
Because of course.
Because you're David Lynch, and you can get anyone you want. Because of course you can. And he mentions, obviously there's a lot of details. He mentions that our friends were there, they had coffee, blah blah blah. He said Cooper was there, but he couldn't see his face. I mean, we get that shot where, and this is the only, well, actually that's not the only time, but it's one of 2 very subtle moments where we see Cooper in this episode. We don't see like present day Doppel Cooper or actual, Cooper with Doogie or anything like that. Well, we see him in here standing in the dream where his face is cut off. You just see his like sort of chin and mouth a little bit. So the idea that he's monitoring what's happening in this dream is definitely the kind of the point here. He's this unseen viewer, this voyeur. And yeah, so Monica Bellucci, brought friends, and she's like, and he says, and then she said the oldest phrase or whatever the way he phrased it.
She said an ancient phrase.
Yeah, I think it was the ancient phrase. I think that was the thing I remembered about it.
Was it the
sticking out? It was the way he said it was the ancient phrase, as if it was
even more important.
Right. She said, "We're like the dreamer that dreams, and who lives inside the dream." And then who lives inside the dream. So right away we're like, okay, Cooper especially, he dreamed things about the lodge, and then he lived in the lodge. Like that right there, there's a clear correlation to that. But then it gets even wackier, and my mind went racing when she then followed up with, "But who is the dreamer?"
Yeah.
Now obviously I'm still like, okay, Cooper's the dreamer, because that's what I just said. Cooper's done all this. And we've talked a lot about how other characters have had dreams and they've meant something, and certain people have went to live in the lodge. Cooper, especially, Briggs as well to an extent. It's from what we can tell, these other people. But it does suddenly make you go, okay, is there something not quite right?
Do you know what I thought of?
Go on.
Episode 8. When we saw, the birth of. The lore orb, we'll call it. The golden orb.
The golden orb, yeah.
And the way it came, like it almost came out of the head like a dream.
You think the giant's the dreamer?
I think he might be.
I
don't know. I'm just putting it out there as a possibility.
It's not a terrible idea. It's not a terrible idea, but I think it immediately went, okay, it's kind of implying that there's something. It's saying that there's someone central to all this that they've not quite figured out. And it made me wonder, like, if the whole Audrey theory about her being in a coma is correct, is she the dreamer right now? And
she is living in the dream.
Yeah, if that theory's correct, then she is living in the dream. So, like, there's definite things there. This is one of these like simple little exchanges that just it exploded with possibilities as to what it could mean. And I have really no way of narrowing it down at this point and saying, "Oh, that's exactly what it means," and that's exactly
right. There's 100 different answers. I think, like I said, the obvious ones, Cooper, still. Yeah. But it feels too obvious. The way they're going. Like you say, there's someone central to this that we don't know, and that they haven't figured out. And I think Cooper still seems like it's the easy option, and not that that's necessarily bad or wrong, but it just makes me hesitant to be certain that it says that.
Yeah. I mean, it could also be describing. I mean, we're taking this literally as dreams, but what if it simply means it's talking about good people Like, the dreamer who dreams of a better world and then lives in that better world.
Yeah.
Kind of idea. So who's the dreamer? Who's the optimist? Who's the person
who makes the effort to be that better world?
Yeah.
Which, again, that would still be Cooper, wouldn't it?
Yeah, at least he'd be one of the suspects for that, certainly. The main one. But no, fascinating stuff. Like, this exchange was like, oh man. Like, I almost wanted to pause it just so I could think for like 10 minutes before I
continued. I also found it really interesting that Gordon's reaction to this, his next sentence was, I felt a powerful, uneasy feeling.
Yeah, the music gets a little bit ominous, and then there's a uneasy feeling, and then he looks around him. That's when we get to the next chunk of it. But it makes me wonder, like, what if the dreamer here, or maybe not the dreamer, but there's something here as well that's present, that's up from like the negative force from the Black Lodge or something like that. That's like there is, like, again, this idea that there's like a war between them, or there's a fight between them, and one is winning. So even this good dream, he's with Monica Bellucci, he's having quite a nice dream, is being like infected with that foreboding tone, that ominous kind of presence. Right. But yeah, so she looks behind him, signaling that he should also look behind him. There's something interesting, and he turns around and he sort of goes into a flashback almost. He goes into Fire Walk with Me, specifically at the old Philadelphia office. The scene from Fire Walk with Me where Philip Jeffries comes in. Cooper before that's also telling him about a dream that he had, and again adding to the idea that he might be the dreamer because he's talking about the dream they had the night before.
Yeah,
and how it was.
He says it's 10/10, February 16th.
There you
just
go.
Just in case it's relevant.
It could be. I'm trying 10. Certainly, it feels very similar to the coordinates that the cops in Twin Peaks have got right now. It's like a time with it. It's like, no, this time.
Right,
this
a time and a date.
Yeah, very specific. But again, the idea that Cooper was dreaming things and that he has a connection to this world in some way, even before all this happened, it was giving him sort of premonition-like knowledge of it. So obviously, it replays some of the scenes. So we see Philip Jeffries from the movie, of course, coming in, and of course, one of the things that the dream kind of points out, and that Gordon's now remembering that he'd forgotten, was that Philip Jeffries pointed at Cooper and said, "Who do you think that is there?" And it is obviously, we know that's actually Cooper there at the time, but with so much timey-wimey stuff going on, and with Philip Jeffries himself vanishing out of that scene, like he, of course, is also coming in and out of time.
And they mention it here, Philip Jeffries appeared and he didn't.
Yeah, and the fact that even Albert right after that says, yeah, I'm just starting to remember that as well. It's reminding me of like when they went to that vortex and how everyone's memories were kind of foggy after it.
Which again comes up later in this episode.
It does, yeah. But I'm like, that feels very much like that same thing with this Jeffries appearance where everyone's kind of foggy on it because it's just the natural side effect.
But all of a sudden it's like, yeah, actually, that's something.
He said that. Again, much like Laura's diary was written before Cooper went to the Black Lodge and Doppelkoop came out, this was also like a premonition at that moment, perhaps, where he pointed at him and said, "Who do you think that is there?" Like, Jeffries knew at that time this was going to happen. But no. Good. And you just held back a hiccup. That was particularly lovely.
They've been really bad today. Apologies. Yeah. I had customers at work trying to scare them out of me. I had to try and explain that they shouldn't bother.
Okay, so that was the end of the FBI section of the show, which was like a good solid 15 minutes, and there was so much in that first 15 minutes. There was the sister thing, Fire Walk With Me, Gordon's Dream, who is the dreamer, all of this stuff.
So dense.
Super dense, to the point where I was like, okay, the rest of it's going to be really calm, because they can't give us too much at one episode.
This is one of those ones where it feels like... Maybe some of this could have been spaced out on a couple of those last few episodes. The ones that we were like, yeah, this could have done with something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm sure.
But it makes for a great episode.
It does. Like, I'm sure once we watch it all, it'll make sense why things are kind of. I think part of it that's part of the point. I think there's a deliberate withholding, so that you then get rewarded.
I think there is, yeah. But it's irritating at the moment, isn't it?
So, police station, Twin Peaks. Bobby's brought in everyone's lunch. They've got a little packed lunches out. I'm like, oh, they're going on the trip. And part of me was being cynical. I went, oh, they're going to set up for the trip this episode, but we won't see it till next week.
We're too used to that now.
Yeah, but sure enough, like, he's brought in the lunch. And just want to point out, there's a little joke about how they're all the sandwiches are all, one's roast beef and cheese, one's ham and cheese, one's chicken and cheese or whatever, all that. And then it gets to the last one, it's like, just cheese. And Hawk's, before he even asked, I'm like, Andy's is the just cheese. I'm calling it now. And then Hawk's like, who ordered just cheese? And Andy's like, I did.
It's such a pure reflection of Andy, isn't it? He's just simple and content. Doesn't need anything to dress up that cheese. He just is like he's comfortable being just cheese.
Very good way of putting it. And honestly, this is going to become relevant. As strange as
that's
this
why
sounds,
I was saying it.
Yeah, as strange as that sounds, that is about to become relevant. So, my only other note for this scene, despite the fact that something big happens, is just Chad goes down.
Mine just says, Chad, F yeah.
So they arrest Chad. They've been monitoring him for some time, apparently. Interesting they chose this moment to take care of him before they go up.
I thought that was interesting as well.
Because I thought it was funny how, like, it still isn't that big a police force. Like, 4 of them are all going off to this mountain during the day. Like, what if a big crisis happens? You've got, what's his face? 5-second pose man.
I think that's kind of the point. They're like, no, we're all going away. There's no one here to keep an eye on him. We can't trust him anymore. We've got to just do it now.
But it does paint that moment with Lucy looking at him, like stealing the letter back, a few episodes ago. Like, oh, she was suspicious. Like, even she's in on it.
She's probably in on it and watching as well.
Yeah.
Because no way Andy can keep anything like that secret.
Oh God. Their pillow talk must just be like a dossier of like everything that happened. He's not holding back,
especially from Lucy, because she rapid fires through stuff.
So we see them arrive at the edge of the forest and they go in, and then what proceeds? In fact, even the shot before this, there's a sort of establishing shot of just over the trees. It is gorgeous. Like these.
It is.
This entire journey through the woods, it is some of the best photography he's had in this season.
Which is saying something.
Yeah, it is, and it's beautiful stuff. It's really rich, colourful, dense, and as it goes on as well, it gets more ominous feeling, which is really impressive because it's broad daylight. Like, it shouldn't feel this creepy.
I think it's just you start hearing, even if at first you're not consciously aware of it, that electrical hum comes in at the background.
Yeah, you hear the electrical hum, and then there's just this idea is where it's not super handheld, but there is like this movement to it where it feels kind of unnatural. And then as it gets closer and closer, and Bobby's talking about how this is the trail up to my dad's old station, and it's all gone now, and so on and so on. And they get to Jack Rabbit's palace.
Just before we get to that stuff, there's when they get out of the car.
Yeah.
So it does a close up then on the trees, and the electrical hum becomes much louder, like it's coming from the trees themselves.
Oh yeah.
Like it's actually the trees are the conduits.
I can see it, or even just wood in general. Like that extends to like all the electrical posts and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that. But so they're traveling through the woods to tell about the history, and they get to Jack Rabbit's place, and immediately this tree trunk thing that's there, this sort of like broke off tree trunk, I'm like, that looks familiar. And then the actual camera does the same shot. It's much quicker than it was in episode 8, but it's the same shot of what I'm going to call the White Lodge. I'm assuming it's the White Lodge in the Purple Sea from episode 8. That same sort of slow track in and tilt up, and it ends with the sunlight beaming on it, and it's the exact same thing. And the music comes in. It's a really big moment where I just sort of grinned and went, "Oh boy." Because we know part of these woods has the entrance to the lodge, the sycamore trees, right? We know part of the woods has that. And then here, because they get to this location and they're like, okay, wait, put dirt in the pockets because that's what the instructions said to do. And I
love the way Andy says that, like, just for a second, I'd forgotten that was an instruction. And because of Andy's delivery, it just sounds like one of his things. He's like, we should put dirt in our pockets. Like, just sounds like one of his things.
I can see it. But they go off to the coordinates because it's like, okay, it's so many due east from this location or whatever it was, and they're getting closer to this area. And before we talk about what's actually at the area, one of the things is there's like a sort of circle in the ground. There's this like sort of little pit looking thing, and it's very reminiscent of the circular entrance to the Black Lodge.
There is also, I think it was a young sycamore tree.
A young sycamore tree.
The thin white one.
Yeah.
I think that's a sycamore.
Okay, interesting.
I could be wrong, but from memory.
And I want to point out, as they're walking towards this place, these coordinates, the visuals start to stutter. There's like a stuttering kind of thing. It legitimately almost looks like your playback starting to corrupt a little bit.
It does.
It feels unnatural to the point you're thinking, is this intentional?
It feels like this is wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the feeling. It's like, oh, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
And even if you're thinking of it on a technical level, something's wrong. It immediately makes you in that mindset.
And of course, they get around to this location, and as we're sort of coming around some trees, so we sort of reveal this mist, this smoke, which is also stuttering, and this is when the electrical sort of scratching is like really distorted and starting to crackle a lot. And we see there's someone lying there, and as it clears up a little bit, okay, it's clearly a woman. It clears up a bit more, and it's okay. She's naked. Like who is this? And you're like, and part of me is like, oh man, it feels super Twin Peaks to find a dead body. If indeed she is dead. Obviously at this point I'm not sure yet because we're just getting to her.
You just when you see a body lying in the woods, like you just assume dead body at first,
and they
until
get close,
otherwise told.
And of course it's withholding her face for the longest time until it gets close and it turns, and you see the face. You see the eyes stitched up, the several stitches, and it's the woman from episode 3 who's credited as Nado. That's her name in the credits, Nado.
Right. Okay. I've just referred to as woman with no eyes in my notes.
Naido, Nado. So we get to her, and I realise that I'm just skipping a lot of my notes here as I'm talking about this.
Playing catch up now.
I'm just looking back to see if I missed anything important. I don't think I have. But yeah, so Nado conceals her face, suckle at the pit, similar to the thingy, right? And then of course they don't have much time to process all this, and she's trying to speak, but she's not really. She's making noises. She's making these weird noises that aren't really words. It's the sort of clicking and kind of noises and
dolphin speak. I referred to it as in my notes.
That's not a bad way of putting it. Yeah, there's a squeakiness in there too. Yeah, it's just between that and sort of clicking. And before they have time to really process anything, vortex.
I was like, okay, this was already huge, just them finding this, and them going, it's 2:53.
Yeah, it's the time it said on the bit of paper.
Yeah, and then just the realization that, hang on, this is what we were here for. And then vortex, I was like, holy shit, this is all going down.
Because at this point you're thinking, okay, they found this woman who we know was protecting part of the lodge that's been corrupted. She was trying to help Cooper. At some point, and obviously she fell off the box, the outer thing. When they went outside, it was that little box floating in space, what it looked like, and she fell off that when she flipped the switch. And
so you assume this is where she's fallen to.
Yeah, she's ended up here, and you're thinking, okay, they found her. They have to figure out who she is. What's her purpose? This is already huge, and then vortex.
Yeah. And that's it, and then vortex, and everything's like, oh, we're only just getting started.
And of course, they all stand up, they stare at it. But again, pointing out Andy here. Andy's holding her hand. He's trying to comfort her, even though he can't understand her. He's trying to do his best to make her feel comfortable. And he's the last person to stand up and look at the vortex. Like, he takes longer. And they're looking up. There's a sort of flickering kind of thing goes on. And then Andy vanishes. He disappears.
Yeah, just in one of those flickers, he just doesn't come back.
Yeah, he just pops out of the image. And then I've just put White Lodge, ! And then it's a new page of notes. We're on page 3, for those keeping track. So, of course, he's sitting in a chair, the giant stair, where it's black and white, again, like whenever we've seen this area. At least, not so much in episode 3, admittedly, but whenever it's been with the giant, when it's not corrupted, it's been black and white.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And admittedly, this exact location that he's in right now may not be that same location. This may be somewhere else. Maybe he's in hiding because everything in the main area's got corrupted, kind of idea. But interestingly, he says that his name is the Fireman.
Yeah, which is a new one for we've seen him introduce himself over and over. Where he says, "I am the." We've seen that a few times with various endings.
Yeah, so he is the Fireman, and this makes sense. Fire, walk with me. He puts out that fire, like.
Yeah,
it's so simple, and he's credited as that as well. By the way, in this episode, he's credited as the Fireman, and he may have been in episode 8 actually.
Okay,
but at the time, everyone was just kind of confused. Like, why is he credited as that? But like, whereas, here it's like, okay, right, he's saying he's the Fireman.
Yeah.
So he holds up his hand, kind of similar to what we've seen him do before, where he's made things happen, and he makes an object appear in Andy's hands.
Yeah, you couldn't really make it out at first. It almost looked, at the distance at first, I was like, is that a book? Like, the way he was holding it?
Yeah, it looked like a sculpture to me, like some sort of New Age kind of sculpture, but it's got like a wick on it almost. However, it doesn't have a flame itself. Basically what happens is this mist comes up, and it forms what I'm going to call the portal that acts as a TV screen
Yes.
for Andy to see things.
That'll do nicely.
Yeah, and then this what I'm going to call the reverse candle, as it's playing this stuff, sucks all the mist in as it's doing it, and then eventually once it's done, it sucks it all in, and then it's contained again, and then it vanishes. Right? And obviously we're going to talk about what it saw, but that's what happens. It creates this thing on the ceiling. It's just like it's almost like the porthole in a ship rather than a window in a building.
It is, yeah. It's a good way of describing it.
So he's looking up, and I've written down everything. The gist of this is basically that Andy gets the story so far. That is basically what happens here.
Pretty much.
With a little bit extra. But I've just noted down, so he sees, Babylon, the mother of all abominations. We've seen before, he's seen the orb that had Bob in it. He's seen the woodsman and their time displaced thing at the convenience store. The electrical scratching and the electric poles. The sort of the reaction to Laura's death, and then Laura's face with the angels in the lodge from Fire Walk With Me. So he's having all this explained to him. He sees Nado in the forest, and then this is kind of showing that we're back to present day for him, because then he's showing that there's two Coopers. He's showing the Coopers split.
And it's really obvious as well, because those bits are in colour. You know, the bits that are...
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Those bits that are like the more present day, that are part of his experiences timeline.
Yeah, although that starts with Laura's death.
Yeah, which is... But that's what I mean, the stuff that's relevant to Twin Peaks, is in colour.
Yeah. So he sees the two Coopers. It's clearly showing him that there's a good and bad Cooper. It's clearly showing that. And then it shows some things we don't quite... clearly things from the future here. At least that's how I'm interpreting it.
I assume so as well.
He sees a phone ringing. It's that simple. There's a phone ringing.
Line 1 flashing.
Yeah, line 1 flashing, which she's been saying. And she said that again in this episode. I glossed over it.
Which is why I wrote it down, because she's been saying it a lot, but then in this episode as well, she'd said it, and then you saw it there. It's like, okay, it's important.
And then there's a scene of Andy placing Lucy in the hallway, and I immediately just giggled because I got what this was. This is Andy putting Lucy in the hallway because he knows it's meant to happen because he's seen it in the future already.
Yeah.
That's immediately how I read this. I thought that was fantastic. Like, stand here, this is where you are. I can see you from the past. And you sort of see her looking up like she's expecting to feel something, like, what's going on?
It's just Andy self-fulfilling.
Yeah, and then we see Nado again, but then the final thing that he sees actually is repeated images of the post that has the number 6 on it. Again, from Firewalk With Me, we also saw, in whatever episode we saw the kid get run down. It was right after that scene as well.
It's like 4 or 5, maybe?
5 or 6, I think. It wasn't 4.
No.
But it was 5 or 6.
Quite early on, though.
Yeah. So that's the last thing he sees. And then the object collects all the mist in, and Andy disappears. And then we go back to sort of the tree trunk that looks like the White Lodge with the...
we have like a faded time lapse.
Yeah, we have... It's basically this similar... Not as violent in terms of being it's completely erratic, but it's very similar to the woodsman in front of the convenience store. And the way I'm kind of reading that is that this is the show's way of showing us that this is the fogginess, because immediately after this they all start talking about how they are not even really sure what just happened. They can't quite remember it. It's like foggy, it's hazy. And that's what this is. Like, we see like all them walking back to this is all overlapping in each other, and it's kind of like all of that's kind of like a weird vague haze of things.
It's like, okay, I get things happen. It feels different to the ones in that, like I say, it's very smooth. It feels almost peaceful the way this is shot.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is how things are. This is just we went on this walk.
But still confusing, still
right.
Hard to figure out.
It fades in and out. Everything's overlapping. Things aren't. They're out of place, out of time.
Gentle. It's very gentle. Whereas the woodsman one was very like I say,
very
violent.
Yeah.
Violently edited.
Use.
But of course, so they can't remember, which they actually say after the Andy bit. But Andy sort of fades. But unlike the others, they all fade in. Like, they all overlap. Andy doesn't. Andy's not there during this whole fading. And then he fades in on his own at the end. And he's holding Nado. He's got his jacket around her. And he's holding her. And then, I didn't get every sentence, but the core things were, Nado is very important, and there are people that want her dead.
Yeah, and then we have to keep her safe.
We have to keep her safe, and don't tell anyone about this. And Joe, I love about this, right? So to actually analyse everything that just happened, right? This whole Andy going to the White Lodge. He was picked because he was good, because he was pure. And it's not to say that the other characters aren't good, because I think they all three are good people. But Andy is boiled down to he's incorruptible. He's just cheese, as you put it. He's just cheese. He is good.
He doesn't need anything else to cover for him. You know, like to go back to the sandwiches, the roast beef, whatever it is, they're covering for the cheese. They're like, the cheese isn't enough. They need something else with it. They need an edge. But Andy's like, no, cheese, just that's it. It doesn't need any more than that.
And again, I think him holding the hand just before, it's just a way of visually telling us, from the director's point of view, it's just showing us right before it happens, this is why he's taken, because he is the kindest soul here. That's not to say that the other three aren't, because the other three have all proven to be good people. But
of course.
He is the complete unadulterated, he is the complete innocent one here. He, as you say,
he's the purest one, I think.
Purest, yeah, that's a good word for it. He's the purest. And again, it reminds me of Cooper. Why is Cooper's this good person who does all these things to all these people? And Cooper's the only other person, which admittedly, that scene in the start of the season was in the future. We've not got to that point yet.
No, that's true.
Because he was not Dougie in that scene. He was Cooper.
He was.
So, interested to see how we get to that point. But I think there's something really fantastic about this, where you take this silly character, the one who is like clueless about everything, and all of a sudden he's the one who has all the knowledge. He's the one who knows everything.
Yeah, it reminds me back in when he shot, what's his name, Renault.
Yes.
And it was like like everything's going on, but and Andy, it was a joke. He was this terrible shot, but then he's the one in the moment of crisis. He's the one that delivered.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same here. It's like, there's all this stuff going on, but no, Andy's the one who will deliver this. He'll the one that'll get the message through.
That's just kind of why I'm convinced that the ending's going to be a win for the good guys. Like, good will win, because that's kind of the point of this story here. Like, he's selected here because he's good.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're looking at everything else as being corrupted by the darkness, whereas he, so exciting. I think this scene was exciting from a plot progression point of view, because someone got all the information, at least enough of it to like move things forward. It's exciting.
The question is, can Andy, get that information across to people?
I think because see that scene where he walks out here and he's like, "Oh, we need to do this. This is who she is, and people are after her." That is the most succinct and to the point he has ever been.
Oh no, you're right. Actually, yeah, he's very clear. And it's just like, no, this is it. And
he's still Andy. Like the next scene we see him in the jail cell, he's still acting like Andy. But when it comes to this information, it feels like, no, his head's clear. He knows what he's talking about here. At least when he needs to know it. Maybe he won't always be talking about it, but when something comes up, it's like, no, this is what it is. This is what we need to do. And I think that's exciting. So I think it's exciting from the point of view of, giving Andy a big thing to do. Like, Andy's got a big important part of him now. He's a big important part of the show now. It's also exciting because the found needle, that's something from the lodge that is now also in Twin Peaks. And then just the pure excitement of finding this entrance to the lodge and the static and all. Fantastic. These last 10 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah, I have no idea. I feel like, when they get back from that time-lapse fog, I feel like that whole section of this show is like, I have no idea how long that was, but it was amazing.
Yeah. So no, I can't praise these. I mean, this whole episode so far, to be honest, and I don't really have any complaints about most of the rest either. But super exciting.
Yeah.
For lots of reasons, from character perspectives, from plot progression to the overall mythology, and just all of it, good stuff. And beautifully shot. Some of the most beautifully shot stuff in the entire season was in this. Them going to the location, all the trees, the shot of the tree trunk, all that stuff. Yeah. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
So then we got back to the police station and around the jail cell with Nado, which they're putting her in a cell to keep her safe. That's his thinking, which not terrible thinking.
I think cell number 9, just in case it was relevant.
I never even noticed. That's fair enough.
I think she was 9. Hers was a little bit. The other people in the cells, I've got their numbers. Hers was a little bit obscured most of the time, but it looked like a 9.
So number 9. So Lucy's helping. They're having a sweet little moment. And when they leave. So Nado's making some more noises. Again, this was even more dolphin-like. There was more of a higher pitch thing here. Chad is yelling constantly. In fact, before Andy leaves, he goes over again, sort of showing how good Andy is. He goes over to Chad and says, "You're a very bad person, Chad. You give good police officers a bad name." And again, it's this purity of Andy. So there's also a sick man in one of the cells. And perhaps most interestingly, he is repeating lines, kind of like a certain someone that we've had all season.
Yeah, I've got that as well. And again, he seems in the same way we've been saying how these certain people seem to be tapping into him, like Jerry, and we mentioned Candy. Again, he seems kind of out of it. It kind of fits the bill.
Yeah, he's out of it. He's got a wound on his cheek. Might even be a gunshot. Like, it was that kind of size. I mean, admittedly,
Yeah.
I'd expect someone to be dead who was shot in the cheek, but depending on angle and whatnot, I mean, it could. But
You're assuming someone shot him. He didn't shoot himself from inside out.
that's a good point. Yeah, that wouldn't kill you because it would just be a hole in the cheek.
Yeah, wouldn't be that bad. I mean, it'd be painful, but it wouldn't
Be
be lethal
painful,
for sure. Is my point.
Yeah, but it's just flesh. It's not.
Right? Yeah, nothing lethal there.
So he's repeating stuff. Not only is he repeating what Chad's saying, he's repeating what Nado's doing as well. She's making these noises, and he's kind of mimicking the noises.
I was almost expecting his mimic to be a translation. Like at some point, I was almost expecting it to be, his be clearer. Yeah,
I can see it. So repeating, Nado's making noises. I don't really have anything more to add here. Chad gets frustrated and sort of lies back down. Of course, the one final thing here is that the sick man is... At first, it just looks like he's bleeding. He's like bleeding from the nose and mouth, right? And then the camera goes down at the end of the scene, and it's like, is that Garmonbozia? It looks a wee bit yellow. There's a bit of yellow in there.
Yellow, doesn't it? It definitely didn't look blood red for sure.
No,
it was more of an orangey brown.
It was almost like it was mixed. It was blood mixed with a bit of... Because it didn't look... Because when Doppelkoop, threw up the Garmonbozia, it was like thick yellow and black.
Yeah,
like
it
mixture.
definitely wasn't that.
Yeah.
Like I say, it was more orangey, murky brown, like dirty water sort of thing.
Yeah, it was almost like the blood was starting to mix in with a little bit of it, and it was like diluted kind of idea. But interesting. More on that possibly later, depending on theories. So then we go to the Great Northern with James. We got to see with James. It's not in the Roadhouse. With Freddy, I remember, I can't remember if I said it on the review for the first two episodes, but at the end of episode 2, when they came out of the Roadhouse, I do remember vividly thinking, why does his friend have a glove in his hand, right? I remember vividly thinking that.
You definitely never mentioned it.
Did I not mention it? Well, I definitely remember thinking it, and sure enough, we get this scene, and they're both security guards who work for the Great Northern. Which I thought, that's fine, that's what James's job is now, that's cool.
Well, yeah, clearly the Roadhouse doesn't pay well enough.
Cool or not? I mean, who's paying them for just you
and
I
mean, they can pay 9-inch nails, but not James.
That's a good point. And Lissy, they got Lissy for this episode.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there. I want to point out as well that James at one point says, "Oh, we're cool," and then I just wrote down next to that quote, "He's always been cool."
You're such a knob.
So Freddie, who's English, is trying to... Well, I mean, which you'd never notice with that thick accent. Jesus Christ.
It was not a great accent either.
Well, that's the thing. I think he probably is English, but he's just been told to...
Play it up.
Yeah, because the moment that got me... Because the whole thing was kind of over the top, but the moment that got me is he referred to London as London Town, and I'm like, do people say that these days?
No, they don't.
Yeah.
You're okay. People do not refer to it as that.
Because when I hear, London Town, I think of, 150 years ago. I think of Jack the Ripper times.
I mean, he mentions, the word Jobsworth. The way he says it again, that's another word that you don't really hear very often now.
But then, maybe that's the point. Maybe he's like an old soul. Maybe he does say things that most people don't say now.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that's kind of part of the point. But he's trying to crack open some nuts, and his green hand, his gloved hand, is it's just obliterating the debris after he's smashed them.
Yeah, they're just dust.
And it happens a couple of times, and then James is like, "Oh, let me do that," and he gets the nutcracker, and he's going for it. And so they talk before they get to the meat of the story here, which we're going to talk about. They're like, "Okay, we're just waiting for this last delivery, blah 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 blah." And James wants to go to the Roadhouse afterwards, and Freddy's like, "I just want to see if Renee's there." And I'm like, "Okay, so that's probably the woman who was ogling at him in the last episode. You'd imagine."
That, or he knows who's playing at the Roadhouse tonight.
Although he says it doesn't. They don't know because he asks who's playing tonight, and then he says, "Oh, I'm not sure." And then
seems really strange they wouldn't bill it.
If it's Lissy, yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
They just bank on people showing up every night. It's just like, we don't give a shit who we book. Whoever it is, you're all going to turn up anyway.
True. I mean, obviously we've had some theories about scenes being out of order. Maybe this is not the same night as Lissy, admittedly.
I mean, that's fair.
That's entirely possible. Um, Hell, wouldn't amaze me that much if this was set before the first time we see him in the Roadhouse. Like if that's the same night, like when they walk in at the end of episode 2.
No, yeah,
There's
that
really
would
nothing to
work.
say that it couldn't be.
No, the two of them together going to the roadhouse, seeing
Yeah.
a woman. Yeah, it would work.
Um,
Because there was no mention of his performance. It's not like, oh, nice set.
I never brought because you'd feel like he'd probably make fun of him or at least compliment him on it.
Yeah,
But so he also points out, Freddie points out that Renee's married, and James is like, yeah, I know. And I thought, James, you're at it again. Laura was Bobby's girlfriend as well. Back in the start of the show. Is this
Yeah.
his thing? He's a little adulterer. He does this. This is just his thing. And even I hate to bring it up.
I know. I was just thinking I was not going to do it. I didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm not going to say it. I'm thinking it, but I'm not going to say it.
And I hate to bring it up, but Evelyn, what I say? Was that her name?
Yeah.
Was that
yeah.
the part of the show we hated?
I remember it with a fiery passion.
But even she was married,
Yep.
so
He's got a bit of a thing, hasn't he?
got a bit of a thing. That's his flaw. He's otherwise a very nice guy.
He's cool.
He's cool. He's always been cool. But yeah, so
Oh, God.
there you go. All right, page 4 of the notes.
Yeah. Onto what this scene actually is.
Yeah, the bulk of this scene. So let's talk about the glove, right? And I've got some I'll just rattle off some points here. So he can't take it off. Doctor tried to, and he bled. And this happened about 6 months ago. And he tells this story about how he was out one night with friends or whatever drinking, and he was walking home, and he sort of went into an alley for a shortcut. It's an alleyway that he usually takes, but for whatever reason, at this particular night, he suddenly felt overcome with a feeling that he was wasting his life, that he was doing the wrong thing with his life. He was wasting his time, and that he, quote, should be helping people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's a good person deep down, and maybe he realised that he should be doing more. So there was this stack of boxes that he just says this as if it's a normal thing to say. So I just jumped on them for fun.
Yep.
He's 23, by the way. He points out that he's 23. He's not 10. Just want to make that clear. And then he's like, and just out of nowhere after that, a vortex opened. And I'm like, my God, I mean, we're not seeing this one, but that's 2 vortexes in one episode.
I know.
And then he's like, and then I was in this place, I was floating. And then he's like,
Floating in a void.
in a void. And then this guy, you know what, it was being so thick with the heavy English slang to the point where I thought it was like, come on, give James a chance to understand half the things you're saying. But,
Yeah, I'm keeping up alright, but this is cruel.
yeah, I mean, I was struggling at points, but I kind of swore, like, I don't think he did, but when he says that there was this guy there called the fireman, like, I almost thought he'd said geezer for a minute. I was like, oh, was this geezer there, named the fireman?
Probably should have said that.
But of course, we just found out who the fireman is.
Yeah.
It was just confirmed to us that wasn't. I mean, we kind of knew anyway from various other things, but definitely we had just confirmed that the fireman is the giant. And the giant tells him this: go to the hardware store near his house, buy a green glove, this green Guardian glove. That'll be in a packet that's already opened, and that'll be the only one that's there, the right one. And when you put the right one on, your hand will have the power of a pile driver.
I wrote that down as well.
Which
No, power of an enormous pile driver.
Oh, forgive me. Enormous pile driver. So first things first, we have a better Iron Fist on Twin Peaks than we do in Iron Fist. That's one.
Yep.
Number 2, we started this episode with, oh my God, Janie E's Diane's sister, and now we're at Magical Glove.
Yeah, yeah. Diane's sister, Iron Fist. Do you know what? Just to go back to how much of a better Iron Fist he is, this guy actually wants to help people.
He does.
That was his realization. He's like, do you know what? I should be helping people. He's a better person already.
Yeah, he's also more interesting because he's got all this weird story. And so he goes to the store the next day, he wakes up, he's in his room. Like, when he sort of reappears in reality, if you will, he's just in his room. So he goes to the store nearby, and the guy's like, I can't sell you that one, it's been open. Because he finds, sure enough, it's there. The green glove, one in the packet, the left one's missing. And the guy's like, I can't sell you that one, and that's when he brings up the word job's worth, which is, someone who, that's not, that's more than my job's worth kind of idea. Yeah. And yeah, so he ends up grabbing it and running because the guy just won't sell him it, and the guy chases him down. And this is where I thought he was throwing in a little bit too many like English things, because he mentioned, he tackled me enough to get a red card, and I'm like, Come on now.
Oh no, that's fine. But the next one, you've got actual Cockney rhyming slang coming up.
We do. I didn't know what that meant.
Oh, did you not?
I had no idea what body part it meant. I mean, I got the intent of the meaning, but I didn't know what the body part was.
Right.
So apparently Gregory means neck, for anyone.
Gregory Peck is your neck.
So stupid.
I don't even know why I know so much rhyming slang. I know far too much.
It's stupid is what it is. Anyway, so guy tackles him and he punches him, and he just does a regular punch, but then the guy's reaction, the way his neck's twisted and the way he's reacting, that's when he says he's feared that he's broke his neck, that he snapped his neck.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, right, so super strength, and I'm like, right, we've already seen that arm wrestling's a big thing, and Doppelkoop's got the super strength arm wrestling, so now we have potentially, sure, technically the strength of the arm wrestle's not the hand, but still.
Do you know what I love about this is I can't help but think of Nadine.
A little bit.
I remember when we watched through the original show and we were like, that Nadine thing never really went anywhere. Like, what was the purpose of setting up that strength? And now I'm looking at it going, was it all a precursor to this? In a way.
It makes me wonder if whatever he's going to do was originally what Nadine was going to do.
That's what I was thinking. Is like, was this originally intended for Nadine?
Possibly, yeah. Or just it's a variation of it because now they have this character going to achieve whatever she was going to do, yeah.
Right.
And again, it's the firemen coming in and like putting the pieces in place so that we can fight back with whatever's coming, kind of idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So then James asks a couple of questions at this point. He's kind of finished his story. He's like, oh yeah, and he brings up some things that he remembered afterwards that the fireman also told him.
Yes.
Once you've got the glove on, go to Twin Peaks. He was more specific.
Find your destiny.
Yeah, and you will find your destiny. So again, he's here for something important. He's here for a reason. He's put him in place because he knows he'll be needed. And then James asks, "Why you?" And he's like, "Well, I asked that as well. I said, why you?" And the fireman responded, "Why not you?"
Yeah.
And it's almost, and I think it's important that he, right before he made that leap that led to the vortex, he made the choice sort of internally. I should be doing more with my life. I should be helping people.
Right, and it kind of goes in with Andy. It's like, sure, I should be a better person.
Yeah.
And it was like the fireman is giving him the tools to achieve that. Like it's like, no, you're good inside. You're making an effort to be good. I'm going to help you with that.
Yeah. So. No, fun stuff. So James, a little bit weirded out, is like, okay, I'm going to go check the furnace because I'm supposed to do that. You wait for deliveries. And he goes down to the furnace, and the first thing I wrote when we went in, 'cause it's very creepy, there's a lot of humming machinery, obviously that hum that we've been hearing inside the Great Northern's still there. It almost feels louder because it's like coming from down here. One thing I noted, but the first thing I said was, did James just enter Silent Hill?
Yeah, that's what you said.
And in between that, the Babylon from the first couple of episodes, or the experiment as it's credited as, I'm like, David Lynch can knock out a hell of a Silent Hill movie. If he wanted to, he could do it.
Yeah, you're right. He could.
He really could.
That's like one of those properties that's begging to just be something twisted and just go strange with it.
It is. It really is. Even the themes of Silent Hill sort of lend themselves to Lynch.
Right.
The idea of loss and making mistakes in your life, and that's why you end up here.
If he ever wanted to work on a property that he didn't create again,
yeah,
that one.
I don't think he will, admittedly. I mean, if he ever did,
no.
Yeah. Also, one final point actually, but he said that he already had the plane ticket when he went to buy a plane ticket to come to the US. Yeah. There was already one waiting for him, which interesting in of itself.
Nice to see the fireman's generous as well. It's like, I don't expect you to pay for this. I'm giving you a mission, but I'll pay for your ticket.
So humming noise, there's various rumbling going on. James does look concerned, he looks scared. It's very ominous. And in the final shot, the camera kind of like pans round and it ends on a door. There's a door in the basement down this furnace area that it ends on, and that's when it cuts to the next scene. So obviously we're having this humming. There's a couple of things I want to point out here. One, I can't take credit for this. I saw this online. But apparently this noise is actually a lower-pitched version of something we've heard before. Way back, Season 1, Episode 3, when we first had the dream in the Red Room.
Oh, right, okay.
Apparently there was a noise in that scene. Just after the man from the other place says something along the lines of, "Oh, there's always music in the air."
Yeah.
There's a noise that happens after that. Apparently this humming noise is that, but pitched down.
Okay.
I've not actually went back and looked to confirm it, but I felt that was notable enough to bring up that this.
Like it's not quite right again.
Yeah.
It's this darker version because in the sense that lower pitch is typically more associated with evil.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like good and bad is high and low.
But the other more interesting thing that I actually did think of, and it's actually kind of comparing it to that same episode. Do you remember the start of that dream, where it was Mike and Bob was saying that he's killed and he's going to kill again, like that portion of it, and he was actually in like a furnace room. It was that kind of room that he was in, and there was like all the rumbling and the machines going on, and it was like, and I'm not just even saying it was the same furnace. But I think
But
it's
the imagery's there, yeah.
Yeah, it's very notable that it's a very similar location to what we're seeing in this furnace area.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it is. I kind of forgotten about that moment, to be honest. It gets overshadowed by the rest of that dream sequence.
It kind of does, but it's kind of funny that in that third episode he is kind of saying, "Yeah, it was me that killed her." Like,
yeah,
mystery solved. It was me. It was me all along. It was Bob.
Yep.
It's amazing that that was episode 3. That introduces to the Red Room. It introduces to the whole idea of the convenience store was in that episode. It's just amazing how like early some of this stuff was.
Oh, it is, yeah.
Brought in, and we're still kind of paying off and learning more about a lot of it now. It's insane. But no, a really interesting scene. Which leads me to my last page of notes. We have 2 more scenes to talk about. So at this point, we've had connecting of things between the FBI and Twin Peaks. We had the Janie E's Diane's sister revelation. We had Vortex. We had finding Neda. Is that what her name was?
Neda, yeah.
Yeah. And we found her. Andy going to the White Lodge. The Power Glove. Like so much.
Yeah,
So much by this point that I'm thinking, right, there can't be anything more big. There can't be anything more insane.
Enter Sarah Palmer.
Enter Sarah Palmer, who, last episode we had that scene with her in the house. The one kind of like actual sequential thing that was kind of in that, beyond what we were reading into the hints and details, was that she was out of booze. She ran out. She was trying to find more booze, and all her bottles were empty. So sure enough, in this episode, she's going to a bar because there's a place to get booze.
Hey, they tend to have a pretty much an unlimited supply.
Yeah, and after a certain time, the stores aren't selling it anymore. That's your option if you want more. So she goes to the bar. She goes in, and very slow pace, very deliberate scene like Lynch typically does, where we have her walking in, kind of the whole thing in real time. Sits up at the bar, orders a drink, Bloody Mary, which I mean.
Yeah, I wrote that down as well.
Yeah. So, okay. So as a man who notices her, in his 50s or maybe 60s, pushing maybe, in that age range, but he catches her eye. He's got a Truck You shirt on, as if that's funny. I was not impressed.
I was already not impressed. When it just keeps cutting over to he's there in the cap. And, it was just like, I don't like this guy. That's the knob.
And he comes over and he's basically, he has a chat up line. He's like, "Oh, you're drinking alone tonight?" And she's like, "Oh, mind your own business, please. Like, that's not polite. Wasn't meant to be polite." And that's when he immediately starts getting vulgar. He starts.
I love the irony of that. That's not polite. After she said please.
Yeah. But he immediately starts getting vulgar. He starts, dropping C-bombs on her, calling her. I'll just say lesbian. A much harsher word though for what it was.
Yes.
And it gets very, very kind of graphic, to the point where he says that he's going to eat her.
Yeah.
C-bomb. I feel there's no nice word to say that. Nothing I was about to say in my head sounded good. All of it sounded kind of vulgar.
It is, isn't it?
But if you just say vagina, it sounds like weird.
It's too clinical then.
Yeah, it's too clinical. There's no... At least with the penis, like, penis is too clinical. But you can say dick and it doesn't sound that harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, strange, isn't it?
We need a middle-of-the-road word for vagina.
We'll have to come up with one for next week. That's our homework.
Yeah, and flower's too kiddie. Like, that's what a kid calls it. That's weird. But anyway, so he says, "Yeah, I'm going to eat that," and then she says, "I'll eat you." And
Yeah,
I'm like,
I was like at this point I was just kind of engrossed in the conversation. I wasn't
yeah.
writing that much down, and then I just wrote down. My notes go from "truck you shirt" to "I'll eat you."
And it's like really, it's like threatening as hell.
Yeah,
And of course, he actually really big and macho backwards. He's like, "No, no, I'll do this. I'll rip your tits off," or whatever he says. And it's very ominous. It started to build, and I'm like, you know what? Everything we've been building with her weirdness, like I'm actually kind of concerned about how dark this is about to get. And I don't think the bass hum comes in. I've written down the bass hum specifically here. So Connor, I want an honest answer. Did you at all, even for a fraction of a glimpse, predict what she was about to do?
not at all. She stood up and she put her hand on her face. I was like, "Where's this going?"
And just as she's doing it, you're sort of like, wait, I've seen this motion before.
Yeah, and I was like, "Hang on, really, Sarah Palmer?"
And of course, episode 2, when we saw Laura in the red room, she did this for Cooper. She pulled off her face, and it was a blinding white light that was in her head. Right, that's what we saw when she done it. Sarah pulls off her face. It's kind of black and cloudy. There's these spikes that come out the bottom. It's like 3 little spikes, and they go jab, jab, jab.
Yeah.
Very creepy. Do you know what it reminded me of? It was very T-1000. If you imagine.
Yeah, it almost reminded me of like it was a hand.
But spiky.
Yeah.
But spiky. And then a white hand comes up, and again, it's like this oval where the face has been opened, right? This white hand comes up. However, the spirit finger, the ring finger, is black, right? Yeah. So, again, evil, whatever. And then that hand does the same thing. It then reveals a face, and we see probably the creepiest image of this show is this smile, where again it's all shadowy and sort of black clouds, but there's this smile, this big
it's almost like
teeth.
an X-ray, like there's all these negatives of the smile.
Yeah, but this mouth is far too big for her face. Like it's like going off the sides.
It's a proper Joker grin, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's super evil, and it's right around here where she says, "You don't want to F with me."
Yeah.
Or do you really want to F with me? And it's smiling inside, and then she puts the face back on, and then and I'm going to use a very specific word here. She stutters forward and rips off this guy's throat with her mouth. She bites his throat off. And it was very reminiscent to me of Babylon in episode 1.
Yeah. But it happens in the blink of an eye.
Yeah,
like you can blink and literally blink and miss it. Smaller
scale. It's not the big sort of, all over the place. But it does make me wonder if Babylon got out of that box, which we've seen Babylon do in episode 1, did it then come to Sarah?
It is in the same way that Bob has a host, and we've seen it was Leland and Doppelkoop.
Yeah,
is Sarah Palmer the host for Babylon?
Possibly, and it makes me wonder. Like, now I know some people have pointed out that the in-canon age of Sarah Palmer does not line up with the 50s scene in episode 8. Right, I'm fully aware of that. I still do think, though, that this may be kind of, at least right now, it's the strongest hint we have that girl in that scene is Sarah Palmer.
Yeah. Do you know what I love about the faces part is obviously the whole thing when Laura did it and it was white, it was like revealing her true soul. Like, this is what I am inside. I'm this white light. Sarah Palmer, it's grey, it's murky. It's like, okay, that's not evil, but it's not good. She's a person. She's flawed, right? But then it opens again. It's like, no, something else is in there. Something else is there. Yeah,
that's kind of how I read it. It was like something else is taking over, and I don't know if it's just because Babylon got out and then went to Sarah. But if you believe that the girl in the 50s section is Sarah, and even though the age doesn't line up exactly, I'm still kind of leaning towards it because that bug that went in her. What if that was like something that was always there, and she wasn't possessed the whole time, or she wasn't like, but over time it's grown inside. And it's only now at this sort of later ages where it's fully, fleshed out and fully, flourished and taken over. Because it feels, something else is in there taking control.
Yeah. That's definitely what that second face was to me. It was like, no, if the first face is this is her true self, like it was for Laura, and then it's like, no, but there's something else in there doing it.
Yeah. Because looking back at like the earlier seasons of the show, when she reacts to Laura's death, it doesn't feel like there's something more sinister about her then. She still feels like a human being then.
A strange human being, but yeah.
Yeah, she has connections and she has the dreams and she sees things, but it definitely does feel like she's not evil like she is now. So the two possibilities here is that thing that went to the girl in the 50s, if that was Sarah Palmer, has grown over time and is now taking control now in later aged life, or it is Babylon because it's very reminiscent of Babylon in episode 2, and because Babylon got out the box and is now in the real world, it's now inhabited Sarah Palmer. Like that's where it is now. And both work for me. Like I think they're both good ideas.
I agree. And just to follow that up is, after it happens, she plays it like, I don't know what happened, obviously. Now, do you think she's just playing that, or is there like almost a literal switch where it's like a personality switch? You know, in the sense that Leland didn't really remember what he was doing as Bob.
Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing though, because she acts all scared at first, and I felt like that immediately. But then when the bartender tried to accuse her of things, she says, "Yeah, sure is a mystery, huh?" And it's a very, like, it does feel like maybe
it's intentionally leading, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm not sure on that. I feel like it might not be a complete switch.
Just an act.
But there's definitely part of her still there. Like she's still acting like her throughout most of the time. Like, but that lines up with all the other like various possessions and doppelgangers we've had. Like, there's always been elements of the people there. But no, it blew my mind though. Like, I wasn't expecting
Not at
this.
all.
And it makes me wonder, like, if that bug thing in episode 8 was sort of an implant, so that eventually Babylon would either herself or have like a disciple in a person. It's interesting that in episode 8 that came after the birth of Laura in like the White Lodge, like because we had birth of Bob, nuclear blast, right?
Yeah.
And then it went to the White Lodge. We had the creation of Laura. It's almost like that bug was hatched and went to that girl as a countermeasure to what the fireman just did.
I wouldn't quite say counter. I'd say backup plan.
Okay, backup plan.
Because I think what the fireman did with Laura was the countermeasure to the original act of Bob.
Sure, yeah. He was definitely reacting to Bob.
So his was the countermeasure, and theirs was like, right, okay, we see this fight's coming, we know where it's going, but we're gonna have a backup.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder because obviously we have Cooper, who seems to be the be all end all, but then clearly the fireman's recruiting others. He's recruited Andy. He's recruiting Freddie. You know, like who else is he recruiting? Who else is going to like kind of be in this war? As it were, like. And it's interesting to me that maybe the other people he's recruiting aren't kind of like planted in the same way that's like Laura might have been or whatever. Like, and maybe that's like a testament to like, you know, Cooper, at least as far as we know, was not a planted thing. It was more he is by his nature good, so he was chosen to help fight. He was chosen to have messages sent to him.
Yeah, chosen rather than with Laura. It's almost like, you know, it's the thing where she's good, so it revolves around her. Whereas Cooper's like, no, he's good, so I'm going to reward that and make him part of my thing.
I do wonder, though. I wonder, like, you know, Giant created Laura, right? Sent Laura down, or essence, or spirit. What if her purpose was actually heavily corrupted by, like, because, you know, she was surrounded with Bob. Like, Bob kind of, like, got to her, like, got into her circle.
Right, and that's kind of what the whole point of Firewalk with Me was. You know, we were seeing how broken this woman was.
And it's like, what was she supposed to do before? Like, if that hadn't happened, if she was let to actually evolve and like become who she was going to be without that interference, like, what would she have been? Like, who, you know? And it makes me like, okay, so is Cooper the replacement for that? Is Cooper now the best chance we've got at winning?
Yeah, and I love that it makes it feel like Bob going to Leland was
intentional.
Like it was she was the target, rather than coincidence.
Oh yeah, I never thought it was a coincidence. I always felt like it was intentional.
No, but it feels more like, especially with the timey-wimey stuff. It's like, no, that was targeted there, very, very purposely to corrupt that.
Yeah. Yeah. So fascinating stuff. Great scene. Horrific. Again, very kind of Silent Hill-esque and creepy as shit.
When the bartender's like, she's like, oh, what happened? He goes, oh, he just fell. She goes, but half his throat's missing.
That's good stuff. And do you know what I'm liking as well is that there's this almost like tangent to it that feels almost Lovecraftian, like there's some greater force coming that we can't. Especially when we get to this next scene when we're talking about how all these random other townsfolk in Twin Peaks, and we're seeing them talk about things, and we're seeing how they're all been affected. The random sick people, the crazy woman in the car when the gun went off and like Bobby was talking to her, like all these different people. It really feels like everything's getting really dark because something big's coming. Some big force of nature is about to hit.
I'm glad you brought that one up then, the woman in the car.
Well,
Yeah. Relevant.
We need to get home. Actually, I'm glad I thought of that scene because something just popped. Something relevant.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it's relevant. I've got that written down.
Yeah, but the uncle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ah,
There
interesting.
you go. Yeah, did you not? You just clocked it now as I've said that.
Yeah, that part didn't connect me.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the Roadhouse. But before we get to the band, we have, like we've had a few times, a couple of random characters. I did catch their names from the credits and confirmed them. Megan, whose real last name is Lynch, so Lynch's daughter, or maybe a niece or something like that. So just a bit of trivia for you. And then the woman who's asking all the questions is Sophie. Alright, so it's Megan and Sophie. So Sophie's concerned about Megan, and she's like, "You're not going to the nut house, are you?" And she says it a couple of times, like it's referring to a place to do drugs. It's not a literal nut house. It's a.
I thought it was really interesting to use that choice of word because in the jail cell, Chad was calling it, "Oh, this place is a nut house."
Yeah.
When they were all screaming.
But again, it felt very much like, oh, you're not getting in with a bad crowd. You're not going with those crazy people.
Yeah.
And then they mentioned, oh, that's a nice sweater. Where did you get it from? I got it from Paula. Again, this idea that we keep hearing like names brought up who we like have no context for. It's like, who's Paula? Paula.
And then all of a sudden.
Yeah. And then Sophie's like, so have you seen Billy recently? He's like, not in a few days. I heard you were the last person to see him. And it's like,
oh.
Wait, what? And the funny thing is it's right about now where the music starts getting a little bit ominous.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and it builds throughout the scene. And she's like, yeah, like Billy like ran like over their fence, which was like 6 foot tall.
He jumped a 6-foot fence. Yeah.
Yeah, ran into the house. He was bleeding from the nose and mouth like profusely, like it was all over the floor.
Worth noting, nose and mouth again because the guy in the jail cell.
Guy in the jail cell, yeah. And it makes you wonder: is that Billy, or is this happening to multiple people?
Right. We don't know enough to confirm either way.
So blood coming out of nose and mouth, and then as soon as after this, it's after he's been in the bathroom for a bit, he just runs back out of the house again. And then she's like, "Well, you didn't tell anyone?" And like, "Well, no, we didn't know what was going on. He was acting weird." And it was kind of funny. Like, I almost started to wonder, like, is this Billy stuff? Let's take away the Audrey's in a coma thing, right? Even though I've got an idea to go along with that as well, but let's take away the idea that she maybe isn't in a coma. But definitely something weird happened with her where after we were talking about Billy and stuff, all of a sudden she was forgetting things and things weren't quite right.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, oh, we weren't really sure what was going on with them. I'm not really sure what happened. And then later on she asks some more details and she's like, oh, my uncle might have been there. I'm not sure. Like,
yeah, early in the story, before she mentions that Billy jumped the 6-foot fence, she said, my uncle was there. And then it is a bit later on where she says, I don't remember if he was there. She mentions her and her mother. She's like, yeah, we were there. We were cleaning up the blood. But I don't remember about my uncle.
And it makes me think, like, this Billy thing, because one of the things we didn't mention on the review for that episode, because I don't think I noticed it at the time, but I've definitely seen it brought up since then, is the first episode we ever heard about Billy. It was the end of episode 7, I think, where the guy runs in the diner and shouts has anyone seen Billy, and then runs back out. If you go back and look at that scene, there's a weird thing that happens where all the people in the diner change.
Really?
Yeah, it cuts to a shot of Norma doing her numbers at her table, like she's always doing, and then it cuts back to the same shot, but everyone's different.
Okay.
And it makes me wonder, like, is any time this Billy thing comes up, because people aren't supposed to remember it properly, where reality's like warping,
reality distorting? Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back. The fog where people don't remember things right.
Yeah.
Gordon and Albert not remembering that entire incident with Philip Jeffries.
Yeah, is Billy like Philip Jeffries, where every encounter with them is kind of hazy and doesn't quite add up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these scenes where people are talking about Billy seem a lot more interesting and important. It's like, it's
do.
built so well that I'm like, okay, now I care about all this stuff.
At first, it was like, who's Billy? Why should we care?
But of course, I've left out a really interesting part of this conversation for the end here.
Yeah.
So after this, Megan then mentions that she thinks that her mum and Billy had a thing. And obviously we're like, wait a minute, we know that Audrey at least in her scene said that she was having an affair with Billy.
Yeah.
Right. And if you remember in that scene, her husband, whose name I'm blanking on right now, Charlie, there you go. He phones Tina because Tina was apparently the one in that story that was the last one to see Billy, and Tina had a husband there.
Yeah, and at this point I was like going, oh, so is this Tina? But then I was like, she looks young, and they're not talking about a husband. I was like, this doesn't sound right.
And then, and then this is the really interesting part. Sophie then responds with, "And what's your mum's name?" And this sentence really sticks out for a few reasons. One, either it's weird because she knows her well enough that why would she need to ask that? And even if she doesn't, it's a really weird thing to throw out at this particular moment.
What difference does her mum's name make to this story?
It doesn't. It's almost like, again, she's forgotten something and it's confusing and she doesn't quite understand. But for us, we're like, oh yes, go on. What is your mum's name? Like, because we're thinking, is this Audrey's daughter? Maybe, even though we've not heard about her yet. And then she's like, Tina, and I'm like, wait, so Tina's having an affair with Billy? What? So if Audrey's not in a coma, there's two people having an affair with Billy.
Billy's a player.
And I mean, I suppose she would be there because obviously I'd imagine that this girl's mum would be a similar age to Audrey, and maybe Billy's also a similar age, which would throw away out the window that either the jail cell guy or the guy who people thought was with the truck in episode 7, 8 around that time. Yeah. People thought like he was the Billy, and I'm not sure. Like, but surely if he's having an affair with two women this age, he's probably around a similar age.
You're making assumptions there that are not necessarily fair.
Sure. Okay, sure. They might both have the younger man. Maybe he's got a thing for older ladies. Sure. Possible. But it just, again, it feels kind of like it's not adding up.
Older married ladies. Much like a certain someone.
Oh, James the set. I wonder if Billy's just as cool as James is. Oh, dear. So let's go back to the idea that Audrey's in a coma, right? The way I would then sort of interpret this scene is that maybe these two girls work at the hospital where she's in a coma. If these two girls have been talking about this around Audrey, or if one of them has, say, maybe Megan, because her mum's Tina, like, maybe that's how she took in the information, if we're going with the idea that she heard this as she's in the coma.
Right. And again, like in Audrey's world, there was, Tina was the last person to see him. This doesn't dispute that. Tina was one of the last people to see him.
Yeah, but some of these other details don't feel like they line up as well.
They don't line up, no. But the core story still follows through.
So something odd with this Billy shenanigans going on. Like, who is Billy? Why are people having confusing sort of memories of him? And like, even when Charlie phoned Tina and he got the story and he was like really sort of like, oh, all right, and like then he wouldn't tell Audrey.
Did he not tell her because he can't really explain it? He can't really remember it?
Maybe, but that's the thing. When that phone call happened, it didn't really sound like he was hearing about Billy himself. It sounded much more...
No, it sounded like she just brought up something else. It's like, oh, this is more important.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like at the time.
It was almost like, if you phone someone, they're like, I'm ill, And you forget about, whatever else you were saying, and you talk about that. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like a serious illness. She's not got a cold.
Right.
But again, I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, what is this Billy stuff? And again, the music's getting very ominous as she's asking this. And then the conversation does this weird thing as well, where after the whole mother's name thing, and then they go quiet for a second, and then it sort of revolves back round to the start of the story almost, where she's like, oh, so he just left after that? And that's when she's forgetting the uncle. Like, oh, was the uncle there? I'm not sure. Yeah.
It's like the more they think about it, the more the memories get stranger.
It's interesting. Something's definitely afoot in Twin Peaks.
Oh, I think... I mean, that kind of goes without saying, doesn't it?
But I just mean, like, everything about this Billy stuff is just... I'm actually, like, what was once a weird side plot is now really fascinating. Like, what does this mean? What is corrupting these people?
Yeah.
It's really, really good stuff. I'm intrigued by all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my last note was, I don't remember if my uncle was there.
But
yeah.
I've got something after that, but I can't read it. Oh no, sorry, I'm on the next bit now. I didn't leave my line break.
Okay. What was the next bit? It was a song.
Oh, it was just a couple of notes about the performance to myself.
Oh, okay. We did cut back to them though. They were kind of sitting quietly, and when the music performance started with Lissy, we sort of cut back to them looking over and then looking uncomfortable. Again, it was showing you that something's not quite right.
They're aware that whatever that story wasn't lining up for them. They're thinking on it, aren't they? They're like,
yeah,
what was wrong? What was weird about that? Why was that wrong?
Yeah. Again, it's this idea of like dreamlike states, like a dream where like you kind of roughly remember what happened in a dream, but you're not quite sure how you got from point A to point B. There's like parts that are missing, parts that don't quite make sense. It kind of feels like that. It's like
dreams being a massive theme here, obviously.
Yeah, so it's like recounting the dream. That's what it almost feels like.
Could it be a shared dream?
Possibly.
Of sorts?
Maybe. If Audrey's in a coma, is she still sharing the dream even though she's not actually awake? And then the rest of it's...
Yeah, is she like projecting it almost?
I don't know.
That one's a bit more out there, I admit.
We need more on this before I think we can speculate much more.
I agree.
To it, but fascinating. There's definitely... Whenever Billy comes up, there's definitely weird effects happening. Like I say, episode 7, all the people in the diner changed. Audrey's scene, of course, was weird completely on its own. And then this had a weird tone to it. Went kind of ominous. The conversation kind of got confusing and looked back on itself. It was odd. And then again, what's your mother's name? Is a really odd question.
That's the part that kind of, even before we get to Tina and that line sticks out in the conversation more than anything.
Yeah, because it feels unnatural. It's like, why is she asking that now? Even if she doesn't know her mother's name, why does she need to know it now?
Yeah.
And if she did know her mother's name, then it's really interesting. It's like, okay, why are you forgetting details
right,
like this?
And you assume that she knew it because they're like, these seems like relatively close friends. They've been friends. Yeah. It seems like they've been friends for a while because they reference other people and Yeah. And she's concerned about her. It's like, oh, you in with that bad crowd? And why would someone who's not really their friend be that concerned to her like that?
Yeah. That's interesting. But there you go. That is episode 14 of Twin Peaks: The Return. Just to obviously, there's been a lot more talk about this. Or things being out of order. Obviously, we talked a lot about the evidence last week. Still, obviously, things are lining up a bit more now. But I'm still, obviously, like we said, like, is that James scene taking place before a lot of the other stuff? Like, what else is out of order?
Now that I feel like they've set up, because before it was like, okay, it could be, but then we had those scenes last week that were just flat out contradictory. Yeah,
part of me is almost wondering, like, are all these scenes of the sort of the outsider people in Twin Peaks who were getting little bits of things here or there, are they all before a lot of the other stuff, or are they all close to the end of the story?
Are they at its worst?
Yeah, are they right before the tipping point of what the ending's going to be?
Yeah, I really don't know.
It's fascinating, though.
It is.
I can't believe we only have 4 weeks of this left. Actually, no, wait, 15, 3. 16. Yeah, 3 weeks. Shit, that's worse.
4 episodes.
But... Yeah, three weeks left. Oh my.
Yeah.
So
4 hours of glorious entertainment.
And it feels like it's ramping up. It feels like we're entering.
It is.
The big finals phase.
Just on a pure entertainment, and this actually performance, I rarely write down any notes for the performance, but I actually thought this one was shot really nicely. Just like as a music video, almost like the actual performance was captured really nicely. There was an energy to it that I think a lot of these have been kind of still. Not that's against Lynch. I just don't think, obviously, filming musicians is different.
Yeah, they've been more relaxed, I think, up until this point. Maybe with the exception of maybe Nine Inch Nails, which is a lot more strobe lighty and there's a lot of cuts.
But that had its whole. Yeah, we spoke about that. That was a whole thing.
Whereas maybe this is kind of the point where it is ramping up. Like, okay, now we're accelerating. So now the musical performance is a quicker song. The shooting style reflects it as well. Yeah. All these things come together. But yeah, I'll tell you what.
Just from a sound perspective, I love the sound of that snare.
I cannot wait to see Janie E and Diane together.
Oh man, this is I can't believe we're getting to it at last. And things that we expected to happen at some point. It's like, okay, so they're going to meet up with Cooper. It's like, okay, we get that this is going to happen, but nowhere near when we expected to. And nowhere near how or why.
I am. I mean, obviously, if this is a fantastic episode, possibly the second best, if not third best, probably second best, but it's up there.
I think I'd have to go second, personally.
Yeah, episode 8 is still my winner, I think.
I agree, just because that blew my mind.
Yeah, that was surreal beauty, whereas this was like just like a freight train hitting you with all this great stuff.
Yeah.
So, but if there's anything you can take away from this episode, is that there was no Cooper. So I'm very excited for next week to get back to Cooper and see how that progresses and where we're going with that stuff.
And the fun note, of course, this was the one that had in memory of David Bowie.
It did. Interesting note that the screenshot of that dedication did leak because the episode aired early in Germany. And there was a screenshot saying in memory of David Bowie floating around the interwebs. And obviously people were like, "Oh, does that mean they shot a thing before he died?" And of course it's not. It's just the footage from Firewall.
Which is, do you know what? Still could happen. Still could have Philip Jeffries just show up at the end. And it was like, "Oh, we shot this early. No, we didn't tell anyone."
I'm not expecting.
It's unlikely. I'm not expecting it. But it's not outside the realms. It's not impossible.
It would be like Lynch to put a dedication here to throw us off, thinking, "Oh, we won't get one then," because
because this seemed like the obvious place to put it.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So that is part 14 of Twin Peaks. Another fantastic episode. We're really getting to some meat now. Surreal, weird, nothing else on TV kind of makes me feel the way this does, where I'm just kind of like utterly fascinated by everything that's happening. So let us know what you thought of this episode, thoughts and theories, speculation, add on your own stuff down in the comments, like, subscribe, all that stuff, helps us out. Get us on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support us on Patreon, you can go over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. There's a bunch of tiers over there and ways you can help us out. But if not, that is cool as well. Just keep watching TV. We'll see you next time. I'm lost. Who's Jerry? Have you got any vanilla?